Hello, my friends. I'm glad you are here. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop a little. You do not need to rush. You do not need to solve anything. For a few minutes, you can simply listen. This is a quiet story about one small, familiar thing. We will go far back. Then we will return to your hands again. Now think about chocolate. Today, chocolate feels ordinary. You can buy it almost anywhere. It can be a small piece after dinner, or a simple gift from a store shelf. But here is the quiet question. Have you ever wondered how chocolate became so common? It feels easy now, but it began as something slow. It began as something rare. It began with real work and careful hands. So let's step back, far from modern stores, far from factories, and listen to the older path behind it. Long ago, this story began in Central America. It began in hot forests where rain comes often. The air feels wet. The ground stays dark and rich. Trees grow close together. Leaves cover the paths. People lived near rivers and clearings. They built small homes from wood and leaves. They cooked over fire. They carried water in clay pots. They walked the same paths again and again. They knew the trees around them. Among many trees, there was one with a strange fruit. The fruit did not look sweet. It looked plain and heavy, but inside it held wet seeds. If you tasted the seeds right away, you did not taste sugar. You tasted bitterness. You tasted something sharp. At first, it did not feel like a treat. But early people often used foods that started out bitter. They learned by trying. They learned by watching. They learned by doing the work many times. They found that the seeds could change. First, the seeds were left to sit for a while. Then they were dried in the sun. Sometimes they were warmed near a small fire. Then they were crushed slowly on stone. This took time. It took days, not minutes. It took patience, because ancient life moved slowly. Imagine a small group doing this work. One person opens the fruit and pulls out the seeds. Another spreads them out in a dry place. Someone checks the sky and watches for rain. Later, someone grinds the dry seeds on stone. A dark paste begins to form. With water, the paste became a drink. Not a sweet drink, a deep drink, a strong drink. It could be shared before work in the morning. It could be shared after a long day. It could be offered to a visitor. It could show respect because it took time to make. As generations passed, some communities became larger. More people lived close together. There were meeting places. There were markets. There were public gatherings where many people talked, traded, and listened. In those places, cacao could feel important. It was not for every person every day. People might save it for special moments. People might offer it to guests. People might bring it out when a meeting mattered. In many societies, a thing becomes important for one simple reason. It is hard to make, it is hard to get, so people treat it with care. And when something becomes important, it often begins to travel. At first, it traveled in small steps. A few dried beans in a woven bag, a person walking through forest paths, a canoe crossing a river, a stop in a village to rest and talk. People traded long before paper money. They traded because each place had different things. One place had salt, another had fish, another had strong stone for tools, another had cloth, and some places had these bitter beans. When the beans traveled, the knowledge traveled too. How long to dry them, how to keep them clean, how to grind them fine, how to make the drink smooth. Over many seasons, cacao moved farther. It reached towns that were bigger than small villages. It reached markets that were louder and more crowded. In these new places, people did not always make cacao in the same way. Some roasted the beans longer. Some roasted them less. Some ground the paste very fine. Some left it rough and thick. In one town, the drink might be strong and dark. In another town, it might be thinner and easier to swallow. This is what happens when food travels. People keep the main idea, but they change the small steps. They change it to fit their own daily life. In a bigger town, trade was not fully free. A trader could not walk in and sell anywhere. First, he might stop at a gate. A guard could look into his bag. Then a town worker could count what he carried. The trader might have to pay a small fee before he could enter. Only after that could he go inside and choose a place to stand. This is how trade often changes over time. When more people buy and sell, towns add rules. They want order. They also want a small share of what comes in. And as cacao moved into bigger markets, people used it in new ways. In some places, it became a drink for leaders. In some places, rich families served it to guests. Many workers could not buy it. The price was too high for them. They might see it, they might smell it, but they did not taste it often. So cacao became a quiet sign. It showed who had more comfort. It showed who had less. Now picture a market day. You hear voices. You hear footsteps on packed earth. You smell smoke from cooking fires. You see baskets of roots and fruit. You see cloth tied between poles to make shade. In one corner, a person opens a pouch and shows dark beans. People lean in to look. They know these beans traveled. They know they are not common. Then, much later, cacao met the wider world. Ships crossed oceans. Ports grew busy. New routes formed on water and on land. At the ports, goods did not go straight to homes. First, they sat in storage places near the water. Workers carried heavy bags. Shopkeepers inspected what arrived. Traders argued about price. Then the bags moved again, inland, toward towns and cities. People in far places began to taste cacao. At first, the taste surprised them. It was too bitter for many people. They were not used to it. So they changed it in simple ways. They roasted it. They ground it again. They stirred it longer. They tried to make it smoother. Then they added sweeteners. This is where sugar mattered. Sugar can soften bitter taste. It can turn a sharp drink into a softer drink. So cacao and sugar began to travel together more often. In some homes, chocolate became a special drink for the rich. Only rich homes could buy it often. They sat and talked with a warm cup near them. It felt comforting. It also showed money because many families could not pay for it. And slowly, the drink also became something you could carry. People pressed the paste into small shapes. They cooled it. They wrapped it. It was not the neat bar you know today, but it was a step in that direction. It made travel easier. Then more people wanted chocolate. Shops wanted to sell it again and again, so more land was used to grow cacao trees. This is where we meet a hard chapter. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. When more people want the same product, farms often change. Small growing areas can become large fields, work becomes constant, and the deal is not always fair. Many buyers lived far from the trees. They saw chocolate as comfort. They saw a sweet drink in a quiet room, or a small treat at a table. But near the trees, the work was heavy. Pods had to be cut down. Heavy loads had to be carried. Seeds had to be cleaned and dried again and again. Hands got sore. Backs got tired. Days repeated. In some places, the land changed too. More forest was cleared. More space was used for one crop. When one crop becomes the main way a family earns money, the family can lose choices. If the harvest is poor, they still need food. If the price is low, they still need rent and supplies. So they keep working, even when the pay is low. Sometimes debt enters the picture. A family borrows money for tools, or they borrow money for food. Then they must keep working to repay it. This kind of control is quiet. It does not need chains. It can happen through low pay and debt. And in some times and places, workers had no real choice at all. They were forced to work. They were treated unfairly. This happened with cacao and with other valuable goods too. So chocolate carried two stories at once. A sweet story in one place, a hard work story in another place. Still, the world kept changing. As machines became common, chocolate changed again. In the past, grinding was slow. It happened in small places. Now, machines could crush beans for hours without stopping. Mixing became smoother. Heating became steady. Large amounts could be made in one day. At first, chocolate was still expensive. Only rich homes could buy it often. For many workers, the price was still too high. But factories kept making more. Transport kept getting faster. When shops could bring chocolate into cities again and again, the price slowly dropped. More families could buy a little, not a lot, not every day, but sometimes. A small bar, a small drink, a small sweet moment after work. This is how a rare thing becomes an everyday thing, step by step, little by little. Chocolate also changed shape. It was no longer mainly a drink. It became something solid you could hold, a small piece for a pocket, a bar that could sit on a shelf. Picture a city street in the modern age. You hear carts and voices. You see shop windows filled with packaged goods. In one window, you see rows of chocolate wrapped in paper. The wrapper has a name. The wrapper promises the same taste each time. It feels clean and simple. It also feels far from the forest. In factories and offices, people used chocolate in new ways. A small piece could feel like a break. A sweet taste could help a tired worker keep going. Parents could buy a small bar for a child and call it a reward. Chocolate also entered home cooking. Some people bought powder for warm milk. Some melted chocolate for bread or fruit. Some baked cakes for birthdays and gatherings. And companies spoke about chocolate in public. People saw signs on walls. People saw small ads in newspapers. People saw bright wrappers in stores. Many people learned to trust the wrapper and the name. As cities grew and stores filled with packaged goods, chocolate settled into everyday life. It became something small people could count on. A child might find it in a lunchbox. A family might wrap it as a simple holiday gift. Friends might share a piece without planning. At night, after a long day, an adult might eat a small square and feel quiet comfort. The old drink from the forest had changed shape. Now it lived inside ordinary routines.
not only in ceremonies, not only for rich homes, but in small moments that felt normal. In modern life, many people are far from the start of what they eat. A person can buy chocolate and never see a cacao pod. They can taste sweetness and never feel the wet forest air. They can enjoy the final bar and never picture the hands that opened the fruit. This distance is part of modern life. It brings ease. It also hides the long path behind the product. But the long path is still there. The trees still need warm air. The pods still must be cut and opened. The seeds still must be dried before they can travel. After that, ships and factories do the rest. So when you hold chocolate today, you are holding the end of a long human path, a path made by travel and trade, a path made by work, a path made by change over time. Now, let's return to you again. Maybe you eat chocolate quickly. Maybe you eat it slowly. Maybe it is a normal thing in your week. Next time you see chocolate, take one calm moment. Look at it before you eat it. Notice the color. Notice the smell. Feel how it softens with warmth. Then let your mind travel for a second. Think of the wet forest after rain. Think of hands turning seeds in the sun. Think of a trader at a town gate. Think of bags waiting near a port. Think of a factory turning beans into smooth bars. And then think of the shelf close to your home. You do not need to remember every step. Just remember that many lives touched this story before you. Chocolate is ordinary now, but it helped shape trade between places. It helped shape who could buy comfort and who could not. It helped shape daily work for people who lived far apart and never met. And now it ends here, in your hand, in a small, quiet moment. So take your time, breathe, and when you taste chocolate again, let it be a calm reminder of the long road behind it.